Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scoburg here with Consolidated Planning Group, and we have partnered today with Hope for Three. We're going to learn a little bit more about them in just a moment. Welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining us for a webinar, we are glad you're here. You're in the right place. We're going to be talking about the key steps to transition success when it comes to planning for special needs. If you've been attending our webinars for a long time, welcome back. We are definitely glad you're here. I always like to start with some housekeeping items. We are in webinar mode today, which that means that we can't see you or hear you, but we do know you're here and we're glad that you're here with us today. We always invite you to put your questions in the chat box. Don't be shy, put them in there. If you have a question, probably somebody else does too, and your question may help somebody else. So from a time perspective, we're going for an hour today. We really try to start on time and end on time. We will get to as many questions as we can as the time allows. And we will also be able to take questions offline if we didn't get to all of them today. So having said that, Rowena, thank you for partnering with us today. Tell us a little bit about Hope for Three. Where are you? Who are you? Who do you serve? How do people get connected with Hope for Three?
Absolutely. Thank you, Allison, for that great introduction and what to expect in today's presentation. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am the Family Assistance Director at Hope for Three. We have been, I would say, in business since for about 11 years. And since then, our mission is to serve the autism community, not only at the very beginning, but throughout their lifetime span. It could be encompass of education, empowerment, financial assistance, or just finding a community in which you feel belonging to and making those right meaningful connections for you. And and in saying so, Consolidated Planning Group is one of those amazing resources that we found so helpful. So thank you for joining us today. I do encourage you. I will help Allison while she presents. I will monitor the chat. You may ask with everybody present, but if you feel the need to ask me straightforward personally, you could do that as well. Again, Hope for Three is in Fort Bend County. I did mention that we do have a financial assistance program that serves Fort Bend County residents. However, that doesn't mean that we cannot help you. So if you're outside of that area, please contact us and we'll get you the correct connections. Since conception, we have awarded about 2 million recipients, and we are striving and working hard to get that funding to share back to our community so that we all could thrive. Again, thank you, and I look forward to today's session. Again, I'll be monitoring the chat as well.
Thank you, Rowena. And I would just say, check out their website. They have a lot of different events throughout the year that are pretty awesome. So you'll want to check those out as well and ways to get connected as well. And for those of you that may have other children, neurotypical children, they have this teen huddle program. And I know that one of my kids participated in that in high school, a lot of volunteer hours, a lot of great kind of respite for parents and things like that. So I'm a fan. So check out their website because they do have a lot of stuff going on. So I would also just like people, if you're not in Texas, we do serve people all throughout the United States, not just in Texas. We are actually domiciled in Texas, but if you're from out of state today, just put what state you're from. I would like to know that today. And I also just wanted to mention that I have some write-in questions that people sent in ahead of the webinar. So if that was you, I've got your question and we are going to go through those questions as well today. So Consolidated Planning Group, we are a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and also chartered special needs consultants. Our whole firm is nuanced and planning for special needs. We do a lot of advocacy by way of these webinars and educating families and parents in an effort to equip you with the tools and resources that you need to be successful. I am a parent and professional, so I eat, sleep, and breathe this both personally and professionally. I have multiple children with disabilities, and a lot of our webinars that were launched were really kind of launched after my own frustration of transitioning with one of my kids into adulthood. I eat, sleep, and breathe this. I do this every day of my life. And what I found was that when we were going through this transition process, it felt hard. Everything felt hard. Why is everything so difficult? And I understand this. So our YouTube channel was born, the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. You can look for that little flower on YouTube. You can subscribe to for free. There are over 600 webinars on planning for special needs. All of our webinars are designed to equip you and give you some tools and resources for free to help you navigate this journey more effectively. And instead of feeling defeated, we want you to feel empowered on this journey. So we are here to help, and it is my heart that the YouTube channel will be helpful, and these other webinars that we do are helpful as well. If you can think of a topic, we've probably done it. We've even partnered with Temple Grandin. We've had webinars with her. We talk about SSI and Medicaid and ABLE accounts and special needs trust and guardianship, all of the hot topics that are always front and center when we're thinking about transition, we talk about very frequently. We partner with other firms, other organizations that serve the community, the disability community, and so you'll see that on our YouTube channel. So we help people do special needs planning. So, what is that? People think about financial planning and they think, oh, I have a financial advisor. Fewer than 0.1% of all financial advisors are nuanced and special needs. And this is a critical thing to understand when it comes to planning for your loved one with a disability. Our situation as a parent with a kid with a disability or a loved one with a disability is specialized, and it's important to work with a specialist. Whether you work with us or you work with somebody else, work with a specialist that's specifically nuanced with special needs, because it is important that we have money in the right buckets, that we preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs, that we are aware of the other programs that are out there, and that we leave money properly to an individual with a disability as opposed to them outright, but to the right way, so that way they preserve those benefits that we worked so hard to get. We help put protection plans in place. We set up lifetime care plans. We do a lot of transition planning. We help set up ABLE accounts, and we talked about the advocacy that we do. And this is both by our webinars and a lot of times also in person, a lot of special needs resource folders, special needs resource events across the state and sometimes across the United States. So when it comes to getting started with planning, what we like to talk about is a letter of intent, okay? A letter of intent is a document we're going to take a deeper dive into, and we have entire presentations on what a letter of intent is. But I liken this to a family love letter, that if something happens to me, this is what you need to know about my loved one with a disability, so that way we can keep on keeping on and not miss a beat in the event of my absence or incapacity. We suggest working with a special needs planner to help you formulate a plan. We also suggest working with an estate planning attorney who is well versed in special needs matters, or an elder law attorney. There are a lot of attorneys, just like there's a lot of financial advisors out there and very few that are nuanced in special needs. There's a lot of attorneys out there and very few that are nuanced in special needs. So you want to work with a specialist on your legal documents as well. When it comes to getting started, we say gather all of your necessary planning documents. What are we even talking about? What are planning documents? Well, the thing is when we retire, we're going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. That's a long time. That's a lifetime, right? And so when we have a child with a disability, and many families are like mine and have more than one child with a disability, we need to plan for that child to live 25 to 35 years after we're gone. So it's like another retirement bucket. So when we talk about gathering all of the necessary planning documents, we're talking about everything that you already have in place. What do you have through your employer, through group benefits, health insurance, disability, long-term care, life insurance? What do you have outside of your employers in those categories as well? We're talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, pensions, 401ks, 403bs. I know that's a mouthful, but everything that you have socked away or saved or inherited or you have in place to protect your family in the event of death or disability or retirement. Okay, those are some of the planning documents, as well as your legal documents. What do you already have in place? Wills, special needs trust, guardianship. Those are some of the others. we want you to think about your vision of how you hope things will look for both you and your loved one. I never have to tell parents to think about how the vision of what we hope for our loved one, because that's, as parents, I think we always think about that. But I do have to say to parents, including myself, I got to think about what I want for my life, because I like to think about this as this is the marathon, not the sprints. When we have a child with a disability who's going to have care needs for the rest of their life, they don't just sail off into the sunset and go to college and get married and sail off. They may be with us for a very long time. You might be 85 and have a kid still living with you, right? And so there has to be, so your vision of retirement might look different than somebody else that only has neurotypical kids. But I think that there needs to be some balance in what your vision looks like, meaning it can't be all caregiving. You have to have some semblance of the retirement that you hoped for, that you've worked so hard for all of your life, and there has to be balance and there has to be respite. And what we have found is when there isn't balance and respite, and all we do is think about these kids, which we're all guilty of, then your health starts to decline or fail, or your mental health, and then you can't provide the caregiving services that you once did, or maybe you won't be able to provide them as long as you once hoped for. So I just want to mention that how important that is. So when we talked about a letter of intent, I call it the family love letter. Basically, I've mentioned this before, but I would say, hey, I have forgotten more than anybody will ever know about my kids' care needs. Okay. But if I am incapacitated today or deceased, does somebody else know this information, the details? So we actually have a letter of intent template, and we're going to share that with everybody today. It is a 20-page form fillable PDF letter of intent. I do not recommend that you complete this all in one setting, because it does take some time and there are emotions that go into this. But basically, you're documenting the information for your child, the family information, medical history. Are they getting SSI and Medicaid, or Medicare and SSDI? Where do they live? Where do you plan for them to live in the future? What schools have they gone to? Do they work? Where have they worked? What makes them sore and what makes them melt down? What are your religious preferences? Are there legal guardians? Do you have legal documents? Where are they? Who is your attorney? Who's your financial advisor? All those types of things go in this. But what I love about this letter of intent is that there's a lot of free space at the end to speak your heart. So in a lot of it, it is like form fillable on factual information, like what is the child's full name? What are their diagnoses? When were they diagnosed? What are the meds that they take, etc. But there's a lot of free space at the end for what that didn't capture of, hey, what I really want you to know is this. What my heart is this. What my hope is this. I am adamantly against this. Is where you can really put a heartfelt letter at the end of that. So again, we're going to share that template with everybody today that has registered for today's webinar. One thing that I didn't mention at the beginning, and I always do, is this webinar today is being recorded. It will live on our YouTube channel after the fact, and everybody that registered for today is going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording, so you don't have to take notes on everything. So one of the things that we think about is, how is my child's care going to be funded? A lot of times there is angst or fear of, how am I ever going to have enough money to retire and stay retired and fund a special needs trust for this child? So there's a lot of different ways that we go about funding. And one of the things I would say is, don't be afraid. There's a lot of clever and smart ways to go about funding, and it doesn't start with you're just, you're worth $10 million. I mean, that obviously helps, but there's a lot of other ways. The average family that can retire and stay retired and still fund the special needs trust for their loved one when they're gone. So we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. I'm talking about SSI under Title 16 and SSDI under Title II. Now, a lot of families feel confused because their child is clearly disabled. They applied for these programs, they were denied, they don't understand. And the truth is a lot of families are denied early on prior to the child turning 18 because of two things. Number one, Prior to the child turning 18, SSI is based off of the parent's income and asset. The family needs to be indigent, have less than $2,000 in their name. They can have one house, they can have one car, very moderate, low income, and then they will qualify for SSI prior to the child turning 18. Most of the time, the child doesn't qualify for SSDI prior to age 18 because the child hasn't paid into the system. They haven't worked and built work credits. So unless the parent is either deceased or is drawing Social Security themselves or is Social Security disability, then the child wouldn't qualify for that just yet either. So it's important to understand that everything changes when they turn 18. It's based off of the kid's income and assets, not yours. So if you've been denied before, many families have been denied before and they never go back to the well, but they need to know that they should once the child turns 18 because it's based off of the kid's income and assets, not the parents at age 18. So another place, what I would say about Social Security, SSI, SSDI, right now SSI is $967 a month. So the truth is it's not enough to live off of. It offsets some living expenses. SSDI could be up to 50% of the parents' records, so it could be significant. We have people with disabilities that are getting SSDI off of a parent's record in excess of $2,000 a month. So I would say that's not nothing, and that would help defray some of the cost of caring for an individual with a disability. But so those are some places, but another place is establishing a special needs trust for their future care. So when we establish a special needs trust, this is a place that we can have money above and beyond the Medicaid guidelines of $2,000 to pay for some of the expenses for their benefit. Okay, a special needs trust could be funded by anybody. It could be set up by the parents. Sometimes it's set up by a grandparent, and it could be funded. Anybody could leave money to the special needs trust for the benefit of said child. It is super important that we leave money this way into a special needs trust as opposed to Johnny Smith, for instance, outright. When we leave money accidentally to the individual with a disability directly, it's going to cause them to lose their eligibility for SSI and Medicaid. So it's very important that we leave money in the right place for our loved ones and for their benefit, and also protecting those assets. A special needs trust is going to protect those assets from what we call bad actors. Some of our loved ones with a disability could easily be taken advantage of, and that has certainly happened over the years. But when you have a special needs trust, that is protecting them from bad actors. Current life insurance, and assets can provide funding for a special needs trust. I personally, as a financial planner, like the idea of leaving your assets nimble to use during the 25 to 35 years of your retirement, and using life insurance to fund the special needs trust, and then any remaining assets could also fund the trust. But we want to keep your assets nimble. You've worked hard for your assets and what you have saved up. You're going to need money. I call it all the years that we work, I call it stocking the pond. We've been stocking the pond. We're saving in our 401k, our retirement accounts, we're saving money, we're paying down debt, paying off mortgages and things like that. But when we retire, now we're not stocking the pond anymore. We're going fishing because we're going to start taking deposits out of the money that we saved all of those years. And you want to have the flexibility for that, because ultimately, as the parents or the caregiver, you're the payer of everything. You're the funder of your retirement, the funder of the future care for this child, current expenses, all those types of things. So life insurance is definitely a component, and we see that group life insurance through work, which we are a fan of taking as much for that is either cheap or free through your employer. But we strongly encourage people to have life insurance outside of their employer. The average person will change jobs 8 times in their lifetime. And if your family's life insurance is dependent on the employer, it's a bad idea, because a person could end up dying in between coverage. Or you may wait to get life insurance on the outside all those years and wait till you retire. Then you're much, much older, and you might be uninsurable. So it would be way more expensive if you are insurable. And if you're not insurable, then you're kind of out of luck. And so it's important to have intentional conversations about that. And then another place that we can have money outside of a special needs trust and that $2,000 that I was mentioning is an ABLE account. An ABLE account is structured under the tax code 529A. They came about in 2014, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. We have entire presentations on special needs trust, entire presentations on ABLE accounts, letter of intent, SSI, you name it. So we're kind of covering the tip of the iceberg on all of these things, to just have them on your radar. And then you can visit the YouTube channel to kind of check out some of the other webinars where we take a deeper dive into this. So what do you need to know about SSI? Supplemental security income. So it's basically, again, it's based off of the child's income and assets after they turn 18. So if you're going to go in person, you can schedule an appointment for the month that they turn 18. I would schedule it for a day after their birthday, once they've turned 18, to avoid any mistakes. You can apply through your local office, by phone, or online for SSI. You can, here's a link, and you guys will be able to see this, where you can go online and apply for SSI. When you apply online, they will have a phone interview with you. They'll schedule that. And so to me, that's a little bit easier. Some of the offices, especially in the major cities, are a little bit harder to get an appointment sooner versus later. So you may want to call a few months in advance to get that appointment so if you know their birthday's in July, you might want to call in May to get that appointment for, a couple of days after they turn 18. When you do it online, this will save the date of the application, and if approved, benefits will be backdated to that date. You want to have evidence that demonstrates that the child's disability began prior to 22 to qualify for childhood disability benefits, also known as CDB, and it was formerly called Disabled Adult Child, and the acronym, they love acronyms, was called DAC. So sometimes when you're talking to somebody at the Social Security Administration, they may say DAC, they may say CDB, Disabled Adult Child, they're all the same. So you're going to want to gather the medical history, physician's name, address, phone number, diagnosis history, medications, employer, if any, last 3 months of bank statements. And I always say I'm a little bit extra, but doing this helped, one of the kids' applications go through relatively quickly. They're going to get the PCP's medical records and any specialist medical records. So I would suggest, calling and saying, listen, we're going to be applying for SSI. They're going to be requesting your records. I would like to see, what you have in the records to make sure everything is accurate. And I was actually really glad I did this for one of my kids, because some of the stuff in the record was inaccurate. And I asked them to correct it, which they did. And that kid got approved the first go round. Excuse me. So basically, after you apply, what should you expect? Unfortunately, right now, decisions are taking up to a year. One of my kids was denied 3 times and approved at the federal level. And by the time that all went down, all of the denials and appeals and all the other stuff, 3 years. It was 3 years. So I think I'm a bad example of that. So don't be discouraged. What I would say is that the decisions are largely taking up to 1 year, and you should fully expect it to take 1 year on that. And there is something called a presumptive condition. So there's conditions like Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, other things, a person having an intellectual disability along with the inability to perform any activities of the daily living, or activities of daily living such as feeding oneself, getting in and out of bed, toileting, transferring, bathing. Those are presumptive conditions, which makes the process a little bit faster. So if you're going to want to educate yourself on presumptive conditions, it's called presumptive conditions. that there is a compassionate allowance through the Social Security Administration. There's over 200 presumptive conditions, so we couldn't go through all of them in a webinar, but you can look your child's conditions up. Don't forget anything. I mean, maybe they have autism and ADHD, but maybe they also have anxiety or depression, or maybe they have insomnia or other things. Look all of them up, because sometimes it's not a slam dunk. The what you think is going to get them approved doesn't, but what you didn't think does. So you're going to want to check on that. There is something called the Social Security Blue Book, and what that is, I'm not sure if we have a slide on that. But what that is a medical impairment guide that the Social Security Administration uses to determine if a person is eligible for benefits or not. So it basically has all of the diagnoses out there. So you can look up autism, you can look up ADHD, you can look up brain injuries, all that kind of stuff, cancer, whatever you got going on. You can look those things up and see what is it that needs to be in the medical records for this child's disability to be approved. Now, one of the things, basically what happens is once you've done your application, it goes to DDS. And I'm actually speaking to Texas people here today. This part, every state has a DDS, Disability Determination Services. It's usually in the capital. For Texas, DDS is in Austin. So once you do your local application for SSI, it's going to go to DDS in Austin. They will request and review your loved one's medical records and look for evidence of disability. It is, again, it's a very slow process, but this DDS can be reached at this number. This is the number for Texas, and every state has a DDS. You can check to make sure that they've received the application, who it's been assigned to, find out which medical records they have received, which ones are outstanding, and you can help the process along a little bit that way. Sometimes cases are denied because the doctor simply didn't return the medical records that were requested. So I am a fan, again, I might be a little bit extra, but I am a fan of checking up and checking on, kind of seeing where things stand. And if they send a medical record request to one of my doctors and they didn't respond, well, I'm calling that doctor's office. I'm going to get the fax number of where the doctor can send the records, calling the doctor's office, going to talk to their staff, and I'm going to get them to move that along, because I'm trying to get this application approved. So there is a such thing as a child. I talked about the disability starting prior to age 22. Having that evidence that the disability started prior to age 22 is important. And the reason that is important is because when we have kids that have a disability that started prior to age 22, they have the ability to be covered under a parent's record for Social Security. And I'm not talking about SSI right now. I'm talking about Social Security disability. And basically, when a parent applies to receive their own Social Security benefits, either through retirement or disability, the disabled adult child is entitled to receive 1/2 of the parent's benefit. This also applies to minor children who are not disabled. This is the benefit that I was telling you. It was formerly called DAC, Disabled Adult Child, and now they call it CDB for Childhood Disability Benefits. So SSI, the $967 a month supplemental security income, comes along with Medicaid. SSDI, or Social Security, for our disabled adult children after 24 months of receiving the Title II benefits, once they're over age 18, they're going to be eligible for Medicare. So they would be considered concurrent beneficiaries for Medicaid and Medicare. And so Medicaid, in the example that they have Medicare and Medicaid, Medicaid is always going to be the last payer. So if they just had Medicare and Medicaid, Medicare would pay first, Medicaid would pay last. In the example, which in my kids' example, we have a group health plan that they're covered on, and then Medicaid and Medicare, and then Medicaid. So no matter what, they're always last. I'm a fan, even if they have Medicaid and Medicare, of keeping them on your group health plan. By the way, your employers, you need to talk to your HR department, but you can keep your child with a disability on your group health plan past age 26 if they have a disability that was documented that started prior to age 26. You might get transferred 10 times when you call HR about this, because not everybody knows this. Not everybody calls and asks about this. So the first few people that you're going to get, they're going to tell you they don't know, or that it doesn't exist. It absolutely does exist. keep getting transferred and escalated until you get the form. The form needs to be signed off on by a doctor, but you can keep your kids on your health insurance past age 26. And I know for a lot of families, including mine, this is critically important depending on what the diagnoses are and the care that goes in to those diagnoses. So once a parent passes away, so this 50%, so my example here, they are eligible for 50% of the parent's records. So let's just say for a moment that my record, that for Social Security, I'm going to get $4,000 a month. I turn on my Social Security, I get $4,000 a month. My disabled adult child is going to start getting $2,000 a month, 50%. When I die, as long as that kid is still disabled, they're going to be, their benefit that was $2,000 a month is going to be bumped up to 75% of my amount, instead of the 2,000. There is a such thing as family maximums, a non-working, especially if there's a non-working spouse also drawing from a spouse record, or if there's more than one child in the household with a disability. Rowena, I think we've got a question.
Yes, we do. We have a question from Mr. Randy Nunez. He asked, does the DAC-CDB benefit count towards SGA?
No, that's a great question. So what he is speaking of right now is substantial gainful amount. The SGA, substantial gainful amount, is the amount that basically, so people say, well, you can't work and get SSI, and that's not true. And we have entire webinars. In fact, it was so long we had to do it in 2 or 3 segments about working and getting SSI. There's something when you apply for SSI called SGA. So basically, if a person is working, the amount of SGA for 2025 is $1,620 gross earnings per month, $1,620 gross earnings per month. And basically what they say is, hey, if a kid has a disability and they're working, and if they're earning more than SGA, they're simply not disabled, and they're going to deny that SSI. They look at SGA under SSI for the initial claim for SSI, but SGA is looked at for all years of SSDI or Social Security claims. So they're not counting the Social Security benefits or the SSI. SGA, substantial gainful earnings, is based off of their earned income. Okay, great question. Let me see if I missed anything on that. This, and guys, we do have entire presentations on this. The thing is, with the Social Security Administration, they throw these acronyms around: SSI, SSDI, CDB, DAC, Social Security, and it all is lumped in together, and it seems so confusing. It is confusing. There's acronyms that they use that are the same, that don't sound the same, and ones that sound the same that are absolutely 2 different programs and not at all the same. Okay, so again, the 2 books, the first thing I want to say, as I mentioned, the Social Security Blue Book, that's one that's good for you. You should download that. You should look up all of your child's diagnoses. The other book is the Social Security Red Book. The Social Security Red Book is a book that explains how working impacts the 2 different types of benefits, SSI and SSDI. So if the child is going to work, it's how working impacts that. The other thing that I want to tell everybody, I don't have a slide for this, is the Social Security Administration has free benefit counseling on their website. You can look up free benefit counseling. So if your child is in, Texas Workforce Commission or vocational rehab or summer earn and learn or any of these other programs designed to close the gap, Project Search, to close the gap on their impediments to employment, and they're going to work some, I do suggest that you get that free benefit counseling. So check that out on their website. And if your child is enrolled in vocational rehab, we've done a lot of partnership and webinars with them in the past. They have SMEs, subject matter experts, on benefits and working. And so you can request a free consult with your VR team. It's not your consultant is not going to be the SME, but they have access to those subject matter experts on the team, and they can do free benefit counseling with you as well. So I just wanted to mention that you don't have to do this on your own and figure it all out. You can read the Red Book. To me, it's a long, boring read. That does have important information in there, but those benefit counselors will kind of get down to the, to the brass tacks of everything, how not to lose Medicaid, how to maintain those benefits. There is something called the 5 phases of work that the Red Book kind of spells out, and they go into detail with that. So I just wanted to mention that. Now, so I've talked about the Social Security Blue Book, and I've talked about the Social Security Red Book, and I just want to say, kind of tongue in cheek, there is no Social Security Black Book. Sometimes people email me and say, did you say that there's a black book? There's no black book. There's a blue book and there's a red book, but no black book. Okay. So you guys can download those directly from the website. So we want to make sure that we protect when it comes to planning for our loved ones. There's a lot of questions. When we have more than one child with a disability, or we have more than one child without disabilities, we're sending them to college, we might be looking at weddings, there's so many things. So we want to make sure that we have assets in the right buckets. We help people kind of navigate, what do? Do we leave an unequal distribution, like more money to the special needs child, less money to the kids that are neurotypical, that we're paying for their college and they're going to be successful in life? And that just depends. I say that there's no right or wrong answer on that. It depends on how much money is there. Is there enough money for you to retire and stay retired for 25 to 35 years and still give equal distributions to your children? Then we are in favor of those equal distributions. But if there is not enough money, then we would have to say we want to make sure that you're okay in retirement, and then fund the special needs trust, and whatever is left, everybody else splits. So there's no right or wrong answers on that, but we do need to have intentional conversations with that, really thinking about those things, and making sure that we have things, money in the right buckets. We have to ensure that a special needs family member is not set up as a beneficiary on any life insurance, investment, or bank accounts, period. We do not name Johnny Smith, little Johnny, as a direct beneficiary on anything that we have. And so with the people that are here right now, you're probably thinking, oh snap, and you've just made a note to check your beneficiaries. Okay, so if you did that, a lot of you just did that, because it's very common to name your beneficiary as your spouse if you're married, and then your contingent beneficiary. So if I die and my spouse is already dead and gone, then it's easy. I'll just divide it amongst my children. That is very common. And so if you did that, it is wrong, but you can fix it, and you can fix it for free. Okay. You just need to change the beneficiary form. You will need to have a special needs trust for the disabled child. But we do not want to name them directly as a beneficiary. And so then people have this great idea and they say, I know, well, I'm just going to disinherit little Johnny. His brother Bobby is awesome, and Bobby will take care of Johnny if something happens to us. So we're just going to go ahead and leave everything to Bobby. We're not going to have a special needs trust, and Bobby is going to take care of Johnny in the future. And that sounds good, and we believe the best in Bobby, and we think Bobby is awesome too. But it is a bad idea, because Bobby could die, and that money could become part of Bobby's estate, and the disabled brother never sees it. Bobby could get divorced, and it could be caught up in divorce settlement. It could be ugly. So the smartest way is to have a special needs trust for said individual with a disability. Bobby could be the successor trustee when you guys are dead and gone. But that way it ensures that I call it life happens. Life happens. People die. People get sick. People get divorced. Accidents happen. Jobs go away. Things happen. And when those things happen and you do what I just said, it brings in all of these factors that could cause the disabled child not to get the money that was intended for their benefit. Okay, so that's why it's really important not to do that. The other thing that I think is really important is to have intentional conversations with any aging family members that plan to leave like an inheritance or money. And make sure that they understand not to leave money directly to little Johnny, that they need to leave it to the third party special needs trust for the benefit of said child. So when I talked in the beginning that the average financial advisor doesn't have any background in special needs, it is important that you have these conversations with your family members, because it's possible and probably likely that their financial advisor is not nuanced in special needs, and it so quickly happens. Grandma and grandpa go to their financial advisor and they say, we have this granddaughter and she has special needs and we want to help her. When we're gone, we want to leave our money to her. And the advisor says, okay, what's her name? And they change the beneficiary to her name. That's how quick and accidentally it happens. So that's why it's important to have these conversations. We know that a lot of our aging family members like to keep their cards close to their chest. They don't like to talk about money or dying or what their plans are or whatever. And what we suggest is saying, hey, listen, we started on this planning process. We've learned that there's a right way and a wrong way to leave money to little Johnny, and we've learned that this is the right way. And as a result, we've set up the special needs trust, and this is how we can do that. And we don't want to get in your business. We don't want to know about account balances or what your intentions are. We just wanted you to know that if you ever intend to leave money for Johnny's benefit, the right way to do it is this. And they appreciate it and they make the changes, and then Johnny doesn't get money outright that makes him lose benefits. Okay, so it's really important. So we've talked a little bit about a special needs trust for their future care. A special needs trust will pay for things on their behalf, right? It doesn't give them money directly, but it pays for things. It might pay for therapy, it might pay for housing, it might pay for food or shelter or recreation. There's so many things a special needs trust can pay for. And then, so that special needs trust, we can have an unlimited amount of money in a special needs trust. You could have $100 million in a special needs trust if you wanted to. Okay. So, but there are limited amounts of money that you can have in other accounts, like an ABLE account. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So when it comes to transition planning, when do I need a special needs trust? When do I need guardianship or alternatives to guardianship? We do complete webinars on guardianship, partial guardianship, alternatives to guardianship. In Texas and in most states, it's the least restrictive, most appropriate for the ward. An intellectual disability is considered an IQ below 70. So one of the litmus tests that I say, because I'm not the decider of whether or not your child needs guardianship or not, and the thing is you don't have to know everything whenever you sit down with an attorney. They are trained to talk to your child, to learn more about your child if they're nonverbal, to talk to you, and to guide you that what might be the least restrictive and most appropriate for your child. So don't feel overwhelmed. It is kind of an overwhelming process, but don't feel overwhelmed by that. Also, if your child is over age 18 and you didn't get guardianship and you're hearing this for the first time and feeling like you're late to the party, you're not too late. The guardianship process or alternatives to guardianship can happen anytime. The process can start 6 months prior to the child turning 18, but if you didn't do it then, you can go back to the well later. It's okay. So you're not behind. And you can have those discussions. Supported decision-making agreements, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, those are some alternatives. But what I like to warn people, I'm not pro or against guardianship, for or against. I am for what is most appropriate for the individual. And what I have seen some parents do is go with the lesser restrictive for a person that is completely incapacitated or does not have capacity to understand what they're signing. They wouldn't have capacity to enter into a contract. Maybe they can't read or write. There's other things. So just because your kid will sign a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney does not mean that that is most appropriate if they have profound intellectual disabilities or learning disabilities or capacity issues. So do work with a qualified attorney to prepare these documents. We have a list of attorneys that we'll be happy to refer that we know that are specifically nuanced with special needs, so we'll be happy to talk to you about those. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide. We're going to go talk about, hang on, I think, there it is. The ABLE accounts. So ABLE accounts are under the tax code for 529A. They came about in 2014. You can have an ABLE account from any state. It doesn't have to be the state that you live in. It can be for any state. It's subject, the limits of an ABLE account are subject to the gift tax exclusion. For 2025, it's $19,000. If the individual is working, they can put an additional $15,560 up to their gross earnings. Okay. But the thing about an ABLE account, so we said that there's an unlimited amount of money that can go into a special needs trust. There's a limited amount of money that can go into an ABLE account before they disqualify for public benefits and SSI basically. So you're going to want to pay attention to those limits. There is a Medicaid payback on ABLE accounts. We help people set up ABLE accounts all the time. And we do have entire webinars on ABLE accounts. But basically, on an ABLE account, the money grows tax-free. It's tax-free distributions as long as it can be construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. You can pay for it out of an ABLE account. So there's benefits that way. But because of the limited contributions, that's why you might need a special needs trust and an ABLE account. An ABLE account can also pay for shelter without a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So this slide is kind of a long slide. It's what a special needs trust can pay for. Basically, a special needs trust and an ABLE account can pay for the same things. But when you pay for shelter out of a special needs trust, there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI, supplemental security income. Notice I did not say SSDI, DAC, CDB, or Social Security. I'm only talking about a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So again, you guys are going to get these slides kind of just talking about, what you can and can't do. But the point is you can pay for shelter out of an ABLE account without the 1/3 reduction to SSI. SSI is designed to pay for food and shelter. So that's why if you pay for that out of the special needs trust, then there would be a 1/3 reduction to SSI. So mentioning that, because there's enough people on here today, I'd just like to say, if your child is not working and your child is getting SSI and you are getting 600 and some a month, that tells me that you need to submit a rent agreement and reach out to us, get on my calendar, and I'll talk to you about that. And that will get your amount boosted up to the 967. The full amount for SSI every month is 967 a month, but you do have to have a rent agreement in place to have that 967 coming in. And if you're getting 600 and some and they're not working, then reach out. We can help you on that. Okay. So thinking about a few things like who's going to care for my child when I no longer can, we really strongly suggest developing a future care plan to answer some of these questions. Don't wait. Don't wait for the crisis to happen. We are of sound mind and body now, but one day we might not be. And sometimes it's one day soon. We weren't planning on it. It could be an accident, an illness, a heart attack, stroke. Don't wait for the crisis. Let's have a plan and let's work our plan. When it comes to transition, considering educational and vocational options. We do entire webinars on post-high school options for kids with disabilities. There are options all across the state, all across every state, all across the United States for kids with disabilities, including kids that have intellectual disabilities. So you're going to want to check that out. Be thinking about, is my child going to stay in public school until 21 or 22? Are we going to do a transition program, an 18+ program, a mosaic program? Are we going to have a private pay transition program? What does it look like? Start touring full care, residential communities, partial residential communities. Some of these waiting lists can be quite long. So getting yourself on the list is going to give you the right to say yes later, but not need to say yes and there's no openings. And so I think that is very important. And I think what we like to say here is just it's important that they don't come home from public high school done with that and they do nothing. We want them to have friends, community. Maybe they have a small job. Maybe they're in VR. Maybe they're going to work. Maybe they go to a program for kids with intellectual disabilities. There's all kinds of cool stuff. So just research that early. So I just want to mention Medicaid waivers. All states, so if you're attending today from out of state, all states have Medicaid waivers. And what Medicaid waivers are designed to waive off some of the cost of care for caring for an individual with a disability to keep them in home and community-based services. They might pay for respite services. They might pay for attendant services or caregiver services. They might pay for various therapies, minor home modifications. And unfortunately in Texas, our waiting list is very long. They're saying it's 20+ years. There are a lot of different waivers out there, and we won't have time to go through all of them today, but I have included them in our slides today to go over the waivers that are available in Texas and how to get on that waiver interest list. And there is a way to also check where your child is on the list through your Texas benefits. You can now, I think it's been a year or two that they've put that information on your Texas benefits where you can log into that Medicaid account and see where they are on said list. But you want to get them on these lists. So the next couple of slides is just going to break down what Medicaid waivers are in Texas. Again, there are Medicaid waivers in every state. And Texas, unfortunately, jockeys for a couple of the worst states in the United States as far as the length of time of their interest list and it being a very long time before a person actually gets services. Florida is another state. There are many, many states in the United States that do not have a waiting list at all for Medicaid waivers. So you'll want to check your state on that. And what I have found, because people come to us, they come to us for special needs financial planning, and one of the questions that people ask us all the time, hey, what state should we move to? That would be better for my child. And it's a slippery slope, and there's not a slam dunk answer to that question. There are many states that have no waiting list for Medicaid waivers, and they have good services for individuals with disabilities. But most of those states that fall into those categories are also some of the highest cost of living states. So it's kind of a push-pull. You get rid of a low cost of living state and you go to a high cost of living. The kid gets services, they don't get services, those types of things. So I want to, what I've got on my screen here is just things to keep on your special needs planning radar. Developing a special needs care plan. Our team can help you with that. We always offer free personalized consultation. We want to learn a little bit more about you, the planning that you've done so far. We're not here to rain on any good planning that you've done so far. We expect that most people already have an advisor. That is pretty common. Most people come to us because their advisor doesn't have any background in special needs and they need help. So developing that future care plan is going to be important. Future care cost estimates. People come to us and they say, hey, I've got my special needs trust, but now I need to know how much money do I need to fund the special needs trust. So we do future care cost estimates, small, medium, and large. What if they need some care? What if they need full care? Some families know that their child needs full care. Many families, especially families on the kids with autism, are on the spectrum, ADHD. We are hopeful and optimistic that our kids are going to get there. We're usually late to the party. We want to hope for the best and plan for the worst, and we help people do that. So we know that when you're looking at your kid that's 16 or 18, where they're going and where they're going to be 10 years from now, 8, 10 years when their brain is fully formed, we don't know, but we want to plan and not wait. So we talked about the Medicaid waivers, SSI, SSDI, understanding the difference and knowing when to apply. We talked about ABLE accounts, beneficiary designations, special needs trust. Our recommendation is to start touring residential living communities. Most of them require a tour to be able to be on their interest list. There's a lot of cool ones. I have toured many of them across the state of Texas. So I don't know. I say make it a day, go tour. Some of them have cafes and you can have lunch, things like that. It's really nice. But what you'll find when you start touring these places is that their residents are happy. So sometimes families feel like, hey, I'm putting my son somewhere or my daughter somewhere. A lot of our kids want some autonomy from us. They have friends, they have community. A lot of them have jobs in these communities. And what's funny is a lot of the families that we serve, their kids, they go to visit their kids and their kids are like, when are you leaving? Or their kids come home for a weekend and they're like, when do I get to go back? Because they're so happy and they love it. And when you go and tour these places, you see that and you can feel it. It's not just like they suggest that, like you can feel it. So we talked about guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, and then check out our post-high school options on our YouTube channel for special needs, because it's not the end. I know a lot of families feel nervous when that age 21 or 22 and they're leaving the public school, and now what? So just know that there's a lot of options out there. Rowena, what question do we have?
Okay, the question is, I would like to know the max amount of money a young adult receiving SSDI survival benefits can have in the bank.
That's a very loaded question.
Yeah.
So let me explain why. That's a great question. So if you want to make sure that they continue to be Medicaid eligible, no more than $2,000. So if you want, so you've heard this question stems from because some people have heard, I heard when you switch over to childhood disability benefits or SSDI under a parent's record, it doesn't matter how much money they have. And that is true if you don't care about Medicaid or Medicaid waivers. If your child is getting Medicaid or you care about Medicaid waivers, you always want to keep them eligible for Medicaid by having their assets under $2,000. Anything over $2,000 would need to be in a special needs trust or an ABLE account. If they're not getting Medicaid, they're never going to get a Medicaid waiver, or you don't care about a Medicaid waiver, then it doesn't matter. But most people do care. Some of those Medicaid waiver budgets could be in excess of $300,000. It's not, I would say it's not nothing. So it may be a very, very long time before you get a Medicaid waiver. But in that example, again, it's a yes and no. So you don't have to have less than 2,000 in their name to get Medicare. So once they switch over to those childhood disability benefits that she's referring to, after 24 months, they're going to get Medicare. So if you're willing to let Medicaid go, willing to, not care about the Medicaid waivers, then it doesn't matter how much money they have, above and beyond the $2,000. But I would say the large percentage of the families that we serve do want to preserve that eligibility. So just think about it. Let's say it's an HCS waiver and the level of need is 9. Okay, that's kind of an extreme level of need, but let's say that budget is $340,000 a year. Well, that is a lot of money to defray the cost of care for your individual with a disability, and it is less pull on your assets. Okay, so you have to think carefully about that before you make a decision. Okay, what's our next question, Rowena? Oh, I can't hear you.
Apologies. I actually have two questions in the queue, and I think you could provide both of them. They'll probably be short. One is, can you repeat how to check where you are on the waiting list for certain waivers? And the other one is, how do I start working on a special needs trust?
Okay, perfect. So, it used to be, as silly as it was, it used to be that you had to call your local LIDA. So, like for Harris County, it's the Harris Center. It used to be called MHMR. For Fort Bend County, it's Texana. We all have LIDAs, Local Intellectual Developmental Disability Authority. In Texas, they're called LIDAs. So you used to have to call your LIDA, and your LIDA would tell you exactly where they were on the list. And that seemed crazy to me. How can we have all these Texans with parents with kids with disabilities calling one person at the LIDA to find out where they are on the list? It seems like they should just have a website. So a couple of years ago, they added this to the Your Texas Benefits website. Your Texas Benefits website. And if you don't have a username and password, you can create a username and password. And once you're logged in, on the right hand side of that website, it's going to say interest list, and it's going to be a few clicks, and it will show you HCS, Texas Home Living. It'll show you the different class, where they are, what number are they on the list, and how far away they are from getting that waiver. So yes, you can still call your LIDA. You'll probably get voicemail. You'll have to leave a message and they'll probably call you back, and you may have to call more than once. They're very busy. But you can also go to that Your Texas Benefits website and see it there. So that is a great question. And then getting started on a special needs trust. So I think that the key thing, one thing that I like to make clear is the differences of what a financial advisor does and what the special needs attorney does. Because we get calls all the time of, I need to set up a special needs trust, or I want to set up guardianship or things like that. And they get calls all the time of, how much money do I need to fund a special needs trust? How and when should I apply for public benefits? I mean, all the stuff that we do. So the truth is when you're planning for special needs, we work very closely with the attorneys. They work very closely with us. They don't do what we do, and we don't do what they do. And if you happen to come across an advisor that does both, I would say don't. Don't work with them. Work with one that stays in their lane. You work with an attorney that is focused on special needs and planning documents and legal documents. You work with a financial advisor that is nuanced in special needs. They usually don't double dip. Okay, so that is a great question. A lot of the attorneys offer a free consultation, or if they charge for the consultation, they will apply that towards your overall bill. We have partnered with many, many, many attorneys all across the state. If they're on our YouTube channel, it's because they're good. It's because they're nuanced and special needs. It's because we know that they are doing a great job and they know what they're doing and working with families with people with disabilities. So there are a lot of options. We partnered with a lot of them, so you guys can check them out on that YouTube channel as well. Lots of webinars on special needs trust, first party and third party, lots of webinars on guardianship and alternatives to guardianship and things like that. Well, we've come to the end of our time today. We work on a collaborative team here at CPG. So if we choose to work together going forward, yes, you'll get me, but you'll get other members of our team as well. We're better together is the way we work at Consolidated Planning Group. Again, we're nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and chartered special needs consultants. So our whole firm is nuanced in planning for special needs. So as I mentioned earlier, we always offer free personalized consultations. So if you had questions that didn't get answered, I actually do want to hit on a few more questions. Just I'm going to take a minute or two and answer those. But if you had questions that didn't get answered, this QR code is going to take you directly to our calendar, where you can schedule your free personalized consultation with us, and we will want to learn a little bit more about you, and you can learn a little bit more about us and the doors that you can walk through with us at Consolidated Planning Group. So one person said, divorce, not receiving any financial help for autism services, therapy, etc. That is a good place to start of reaching out to Hope for Three. There are various programs throughout the state helping kids with autism. You do want to make sure that you're on all those waiver interest lists. And so that is going to be important. We hit on the guardianship. Somebody said they're curious about guardianship, so we spent some time on that. How to plan for his future, how to prepare for a future, for your child not to be a financial burden, and how to prepare safety measures for the special needs child. So these are all things when, we're going through the planning process that we're looking at all of these things. And the thing is we want everybody to be okay. We want you to be okay. We want you to be able to retire and stay retired for the 25 to 35 years and still have enough money to fund the special needs trust. One person said that they're interested in the post-high school education options. Again, watch those college planning. We have partnered with Think College. I think College is an awesome website for kids with disabilities, and the colleges that serve people with disabilities. And we've got entire webinars on higher education for kids with disabilities, scholarships for kids with disabilities. It is all out there on our YouTube channel. One person said, presently we have an HCS waiver in Texas, but we're moving to North Carolina. Is there a way to transfer current benefits, or do we start from zero? I spent a lot of years in North Carolina. I love that state. So congratulations for you to move there. It's such a beautiful state. But the answer is the innovation waiver in North Carolina. And there are some waivers in North Carolina that they do have a waiting list. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you're moving to North Carolina or California or Colorado. The waivers that you're getting here don't transfer. But if you're moving to a state that doesn't have a waiting list, the last I checked, there is a waiting list for the innovation waiver in North Carolina. We do serve all across the United States. But if you're moving from one state to another state that doesn't have a waiting list, then there's no problem. And sometimes you move from one state to another state and it's actually better than what you already had. But the last I checked, it is called the innovation waiver, and you can reach back out to me. I can do a little bit more research on that, but I just wanted to let you know that you don't transfer what you have. So we are out of time. We did go over in just 3 minutes, so sorry about that. Everybody's going to get a copy of the letter of intent that we talked about earlier, a copy of the slides, and a link to the recording. You guys have asked great questions today. It's certainly been my pleasure to be here with you. And what I would say, wherever you are in the planning journey, whether you've done a lot and you just need somebody to give you a second opinion or take a look under the hood to make sure it's what you thought you had, or you've done very little or somewhere in between, just pick up where you've left off. We can help you on your journey. Don't beat yourself up about what you haven't done or what needs to be dusted off. just pick up where you are right now and move yourself forward, and we'll help you do that one step at a time. So it's certainly been my pleasure, everyone. I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thank you, Rowena and Hope for Three, and don't forget to check out the Hope for Three website. It's awesome. Okay? Thanks so much. Bye now.